Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Women Everyday webinar series. And today we will be talking about building diverse and inclusive workforce through effective HR recruitment strategies. I'm Pooja Katkar, and I'll be your host for today. We are thrilled to have a panel of esteemed HR leaders who specialize in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Our discussion will cover the importance of DEIB, strategies for creating inclusive recruitment processes, leveraging technology, and building an inclusive workforce culture. We will also highlight the relevance of DEIB for not only large organizations but also for Indian MSMEs and family owned businesses. So let's begin for today by introducing our panelists. Our first speaker for today is Ms. Arushi Arora. Welcome to the platform, Arushi. We are glad to have you on board.
Thank
So
you.
Arushi, yes. So Arushi is Chief Technology Officer and People Officer at OOMS Polymer Modified Bitumen Private Limited. Arushi is a trailblazer in analytics and HR, leading teams that shape the future of Indian roads and engineering. With a background in advanced data science from Columbia University, she transforms complex data into meaningful insights. Her passion lies in improving in data interactions, making her a driving force in the tech world. Welcome, Arushi. We are glad to have you.
Thank you. Same here, likewise.
Yeah.
Really looking
Uh,
forward
so
to this discussion.
Yeah, we too. We too. We are super excited to have you on board. And on that note, I would like to introduce our next speaker for today, Ms. Smrita Dubey. Welcome to the platform, Smrita.
Hey
It's
Pooja,
nice to have
hi. Great to be here.
Yeah. Smrita is Chief People Officer at Infosys. She is a dynamic HR leader known for her strategic execution in alignment with business goals. Her extensive experience spans leadership development, people analytics, and organizational transformation. She has completed her education from IIM Kozhikode, and she has significantly contributed to the tech giants like Infosys and Hewlett Packard. And currently, she is a part of Infosys. So, thank you for joining us today, Smrita and Arushi, both of you.
Thanks, Pooja. Looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah. So we will start this webinar with an understanding of why diversity, equity, and inclusion are critical to modern workplaces. So my first question goes to Ms. Arushi. So can you explain the significance of DEIB for organization of all sizes?
Sure. Thank you, Pooja. I think to start off with, diversity inclusion is beneficial for all organizations at all scales, right? It could be a small business with just 15 people, 10 people, to large organizations which is about thousands of people, right? It's just that you're doing diversity and inclusion things at a day-to-day basis, but you don't realize it. Large organizations kind of talk about it in terms of metrics, but small organizations are kind of doing it in small numbers, like maybe say I want to increase my women workforce by 10%, maybe add four more women to like to have a male female balance ratio, right? So it is important to kind of have a diverse background in your organization, to have diverse viewpoints. Because if people are coming from the same background, you tend to work and think in a similar way. And it kind of gets saturating at an organization standpoint as well. Right? All the views are coming from the same point. You're probably not thinking of profits the way somebody else from outside can give you a perspective on, right? So on a day-to-day basis, having a diverse team will lead to more better revenues, better profits, better problem solving, better decision making because of the varied, viewpoints you will get in that environment. And so that's why I feel all businesses, whether small, large, or medium or micro, whatever it is, should have diverse backgrounds. Maybe recruiting non-engineering folks in roles where you are kind of doing analytics, right? Maybe even having women from arts backgrounds kind of involved in audit processes, right? Because it's a different viewpoint that kind of changes the way your organization thinks. It even helps your current employees think of it in a different way. There are things you don't think of, right? An accounts person only understands credit and debit. But beyond that, it's also important to kind of explain the other person as well that this is coming in, this is going out. So it kind of helps tone down the language that people are using to be more inclusive of the people around them and the backgrounds around them. So that's kind of important for all organizations to have diversity, equity, inclusion in their workplace.
So, as you talked about that, how this diverse teams helps to build, some kind of productivity inside the organizations. There was a report run by McKinsey and Company who declared that, 33% of organizations had stated that due to the diverse environment and inclusive environment at their own companies, they have been able to, outperform their, projects or outperform their performance during the quarter or during the 6 months review when they calculated it. So I would like to hear it from you, Smrita, that what do you think about the significance of diversity and inclusion for organization? Now, MSMEs are there, then there are certain larger corporate organizations. So what is the significance in both the styles of the organizations here?
So, Pooja and I think Arushi is very nicely touched upon the importance of diversity of opinion, right? And we all know the story, right? There was the story where there's a land of penguins and then a peacock comes in, and the penguins are all thinking in the same direction. So that's that's why it's very important to get different viewpoints. I'm sure you see when I'm working, and even if my children come in and sometimes they say, "Mom, what this is what you're doing," they have a very different viewpoint on looking at things as compared to what I am doing, and that actually makes me look at things very differently. So even a child, or even so it's diversity is not just about gender; it's about age, it's about culture. Like so we have a globally diverse workforce. So a person in Singapore who's has a very different way of looking at things as compared to an Indian. We might say certain things very casually, and they will say, no, no, this is. They have a very different way of working. They have a different working style. So in that case, when you build a diverse workforce, inclusivity also becomes important, right? So we have actually in InfoSep started an ally network. So for us, culture is also different cultures, different race, ethnicities, bringing them together is important because you can hire people. And going back to my initial story about the penguins and the peacock, you remember the peacock in the end felt he had to convert to a penguin. So that's where, while you can build in a diverse workforce, and we know it builds innovation, increases by 1.7x the research would say. And I actually, it's not just research, I've seen that in action. Like when I was hired into InfoSeps, I was the first female CXO which came in. And after my coming in, the entire leadership team realized that I had a very different way of looking at things. I would say things which they would not even have thought of. So then they realized that no, bringing Smrita in, who is a female, was a very different. She has a different thought process. She looks at things extremely holistically, and she comes up. So, but then when I came in, that inclusivity was also important. So we have to build a culture which actually enables people to not wear those masks 24/7. So I'm very clear that if you are in an organization, I'm spending 13 hours or 12 hours, because even after work you're thinking about work, right? So I should feel not have that mask in front of me saying that I cannot be myself. So that's why, Pooja, to put it, yes, diversity is important. And when you get in a diverse workforce, important to actually make them feel inclusive, build a culture which actually makes them feel comfortable, and to be able to actually work at their fullest potential and respect their opinions.
Yeah, so that is very, very well put up. Like, perspective is something that comes in with the diversity and inclusion. So that is the reason it outperforms, or it shows certain kind of growth while you're working together. Now, into this, I would love that if both of you could just mention what can be the specific strategies, or how can we translate this into everyday business operations and culture. Are there any specific things that we can do for HRs? This will be addressing that. What will be the strategies for them if they want to create this kind of environment?
So first, if you ask me what is important, Pooja, is to build that understanding for the need. Because just because I am saying diversity is important, will the entire organization agree to it? No. So for any change, right, you have to build that the need for change and make people understand that why is this important, because you're working in a certain way. So why diversity is important? Why should you actually respect other people's opinion? That is extremely important. So we have launched our DI vision last year, and we are spending the entire year actually making people understand. And when we started this journey, there were a lot of questions which were raised. Are you sure about it? Why should you do this? So we actually have spent a lot of time making people understand. So we started certain. So those are some things which we have to do. First, build that, I would say, openness in the organization to accept this change, and then also track it using metrics. And I'm sure Arushi can add, because we were just discussing prior to this and how she and I love data. So Arushi, anything from
Yeah.
you want to add from the metrics point of view?
No, I mean, totally agree with you in terms of that, talking about inclusion, talking about oneness is important, but it cannot just be coming from an HR standpoint, right? The business decisions and the leadership, there has to be a complete buy-in on diversity and inclusion as a, culture in the organization, right? It cannot just be done by an HR. It can happen with small actions, right? It's just having the brand and the company values coming in terms of the day-to-day things you're doing, just ensuring everybody does the same things the same way. They're representing the company as a brand, they're representing the company as a culture, right? In terms of the things you're doing. So all of that is important in the day-to-day operations. Apart from that, just recognizing people, right? Because they should feel they're all part of one team, they're all part of a one big brand, an organization, and they're all valued. So what value comes in is internal recognition, external recognition, right? You may have external presentations, you may have external customer visits to your manufacturing units, right? Putting these people forward to kind of present, what they're doing, having them present internally as well on, you're trying to recognize somebody that, here's what they've done and this is how it saved us money. Ask that person to present their perspective and what is the idea they came up in their head, how they thought of it, and that is where they start feeling that it's their organization and they are contributing to the revenues, they are contributing to the profits, right? At that, when you get that buy-in, all of the other things will start happening automatically, right? Because now these people are your stakeholders in the organization, right? They're not just employees, right? So that is when you start building a culture of diversity, of inclusion actually. And how you're tracking it is you will definitely start seeing better retention rates. I think that's the smallest of measures that anybody can start seeing, that you have lower attrition, you have better retention rates. With better retention, your recruitment costs are down, right? Because training a new employee is far more expensive than retaining an old one, right? So these are small, things that you can start off with, and it's not necessary that you need to track retention rate as a number. Sometimes with small organizations, these are numbers that you see on top of your head in terms of, I recruited 25 people last year and I was able to retain 50% of them versus 4 years ago, I recruited 25 and only two survived, right? So these are numbers you can start seeing and observing rather than just tracking in sheets. It all depends on the level of maturity of your organization and where you are in terms of data and getting data and keeping data, but gradually build up in the process.
And just I think one thing which Pooja, which we did when we started on this journey, was we looked at all our policies. And there's a very small thing which you miss out, is the pronouns which are used when you are
Yeah.
drafting a policy. And we realized that it was always his, he. So we kind of made them gender neutral. We, in fact, the entire we have a sexual harassment policy which we made gender neutral. So because it's not just about females, right? It's about males also. I mean, I know we feel that, yeah, I mean, obviously females are more, because lesser in the workforce, but the policy has to be gender neutral so that everybody from any kind of an orientation, etc., feels extremely comfortable in the work. So these are few steps, as an HR, when I said we started on this journey, before actually giving the hard matrices saying that I need my female leaders to be this percentage by 2020, 2030. We have started with these small things. Let's correct our policies. Let's look at how are our processes actually designed. Are they actually encouraging diversity and inclusion, or are they actually discouraging? I think, like Arushi said, that looking at recruitment rates also, that how are we recruiting, And that's where you build that awareness with the recruitment team that, hey, you have an unconscious bias. Maybe sometimes people have an unconscious bias. So we in fact even did sessions on unconscious bias where we made people understand that you're not consciously doing it, but there might be something which is unconscious. You're making certain judgment calls which you need to be aware of so that you actually become truly inclusive in your working style.
Yeah, it is like very much rightly put by you guys that how the recruitment and how the inclusive recruitment can take place. So into this, like we were talking about the data and metrics, so I would like to understand that what can be certain practical methods that of conducting a diversity audit within an organization, or what can be the metrics that can be considered to know that how is it going up till now. So I would like to route this question to first to Arushi. I would like to hear from you that what kind of audit do you do at your own organization or anywhere else if you want to guide someone to do
Yeah.
something like that.
No, so I mean, like an audit is something each organization should do. Necessarily, they don't need to call it an audit, like because it does seem like a heavy word at times. I call it like a pulse check or just kind of interacting with people in my organization. So we kind of do weekly meetings or monthly meetings to just do a pulse check on what people are feeling, right? Also, you can, but before you do all of this, you should have a specific set of questions that you want people to ask because these questions will kind of drive what results you're looking at the end, right? Because this will give you the data in a text format or maybe just hearsay or just kind of, give you a judgment call on, what is the answer that you're looking for in the end. Because if you ask people around a set of like questions, you will get directed insights, right? So have a set of questions, maybe just 2 or 3, and kind of figure out the 2 or 3 main common problems that are coming out of it. Start small, focus on 2 or 3, kind of solve them, measure them, kind of monitor them to ensure that these changes are happening. You need to constantly follow up. You need to constantly ensure that these changes are happening for the first 3 weeks or 4 weeks until it becomes a habit for the person, right? So it takes 21 days to form a habit, and it has to be a constant pressure, constant action on that person, right? Maybe guided, maybe interactive, maybe in terms of just coaching them. Here's what you did, here's how you could have done it differently, right? A lot of the times, like Shmita said, unconscious bias exists, and people don't realize that we have it. I mean, it took me also a long time to realize that I come from a background with a lot of bias, and here's the decisions that I'm probably making wrong, right? So sometimes, with working pan India, you realize that, some states have a different style of working, north and south. There's a difference in terms of people's ideologies, what they want in their lives. And so understanding all of that and building a comprehensive strategy at a business level to incorporate all of these differences, right? To maybe as simple as, considering the cost of living in the expenses, right? Some cities are expensive, metros versus non-metros, right? People in South tend to be a little more on the deadlines. Like, if you tell them you commit something, you have to honor it. Versus North works a little bit more. These are all biases, right? But when you're running a business or you're running, an organization with employees, you have to educate them on these biases, and you have to educate them that we have to work in one standard way. And these are the audits that you can, kind of do in terms of an HR perspective versus just understanding your vendors, your suppliers, people as well. So yeah, pulse checks, interviews, start small, build up to anonymous Google form links, surveys, and but having a set of questions is most important, right? With the results that we want. So,
Yeah, you should know what
Smita,
to
what would
ask.
you like to add?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Smriti, I
true.
would like to hear from you too.
So I think one thing, starting with the numbers, is the demographic makeup, which I always look at. And one is at an overall org level, right? That okay, what is my, if I'm looking at right now, it's if I look at gender diversity, what is my gender diversity mix at an overall level, and then breaking it down to the band level. Because what I'm telling you from my observation, what happens is that at the bottom of the pyramid, it's nearly 50-50. But as you move up, it actually decreases. So one of the ways, if you are doing a DI program and you want to see its effect, and it will not happen immediately, so you'll have to set those objectives that how will I correct this skew in the pyramid over a period of 4 5 years, or that is something which
Yes.
then another thing which I've looked at is, I would say, when you're doing an audit, is your retention rate. Are you losing more? At what point are you losing more people, and what can you do? Because then it's a very clear insight which comes at, which can be actioned. That, hey, I am losing women maybe after they have reached 6 to 7 years. uh, and we were just chatting before this call that yesterday only I got an insight that once people get married by from our AI team, that there was a the likelihood of quitting after marriage is much higher, which everybody knows intuitively. But yeah, it was something which came as an insight that, at this particular tenure, at this particular age group or band, you're seeing this. So then it's a very clear indication which I can use in future when I do an audit, that am I actually improving. Another thing which I have done in the past is pay equity checks. We've actually looked at how have salaries actually changed across grades for genders. This was a check which we did from a gender perspective, so that we could identify if there are certain biases which are creeping in. So at least these are, and I think as Arushi mentioned, the final step is the engagement. How are you actually engaging, looking at that feedback, the pulse feedback? How is that working out for you, and is it improving? So I keep telling people that my entire DI vision came out of because we had introduced an anonymous chat, and there was a person who pinged me and said that you talk about gender, females, but you're never talking about us, the LGBTQ community. I don't feel comfortable in your organization. And that actually was a wake up call for me, that because I had that unconscious bias that as a female leader, I was always talking about females in the workplace. I was always saying, hey, I need to help females break the glass ceiling, those barriers. And then I said, oh my god, I had this bias that I was just looking at it from one perspective. I never thought of this perspective. So, like, Arushi rightly said, anonymous anonymous ability of people, if you're not actually comfortable having that anonymous channels which are available. And then from an audit, we will look at utilization. How are people using it? How many people are actually volunteering for these activities? Is it increasing? If it's not increasing, that means this is just probably on paper my program. People are still not comfortable to come out and actually participate in the various DI activities which are there. So these are at least few points which I would look for, Pooja.
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, that there are certain anonymous channels nowadays. People are more focusing upon employee resource groups also, where a person can, or there is a concept called as fishbowl, wherein you can drop your anonymous comments so that companies can exactly understand that what you are thinking and what the problems you are facing. So it becomes more easy to express yourself. So, what would be the, a specific, like, we have seen that in recent research report I was reading for Harvard, there was around, it was mentioned that 42% of female applicants would increase if the job posting that we do for recruitment would be in the right way, or maybe it would not be biased, or it would be certainly different. So what would be the different ways for any HRs who are hiring? What can be the ways wherein they can make job postings more, keeping in mind the angle of diversity and inclusion? So I would like to go to Smrita first to understand this, about the job postings. What would be the actions that can be taken in this?
So one is when you're posting the, again coming back to one is, I have noticed the pronouns which we use, generally he's. So that is one thing, because you have to actually look at your job postings, that you're not actually encouraging just one person one gender to be applying for it. Other is, what are the kind of flexibilities and benefits which you are giving? That is extremely important for females also, and in fact everybody nowadays are not just females. I've seen a lot of males also requesting for, what is the kind of flexibility you can give. So all those, at least I've seen when I look through job postings, I find them extremely attractive when you are actually clarifying your organization stance. So you're talking about the job, you're also talking about your organization. How are you an equal opportunity employer? What are your, what is your core principles? What are your core values? Which will also attract a person to actually join the organization. So if you can actually create a job posting which is very clearly focused on the job, also giving on on the aspects of what are the benefits, what are the flexibilities which you are ready to provide to the person, and your organization stands on being open. I personally feel that will actually help, and people to at least apply for it. And after that, it's also the process, right, which you undergo. It's not just about application. If you apply, and after that, when you have an interaction with the recruiter, you have actually a very, you feel that the recruiter itself. So I always tell my recruitment team that you are actually the brand ambassadors for us. So if you are talking what we are saying in the organization, people will, because people look at you and decide on the organization. So the recruitment team, them being actually trained on this, on DI, on being sensitive, on actually respecting timelines. Because if there's a female candidate say, hey, I can only take this interview at these timings, you respect that, and you then go back to your panel and say, let's actually reschedule this interview instead of just rejecting a person. So those are few things, Pooja, which I feel can help.
Okay, that's like nicely put up. I would like to ask Arushi also to put up her points on this.
Yeah, so no, I think Smita covered most of the things in terms of using gender neutral words, like not using a he and she, and nowadays you can just use your job posting, put it on Chat GPT, and ask it to make it gender neutral, make it more inclusive, right? That's how you teach your basics to your HR team to kind of ensure that it is inclusive. Apart from that, I feel we're in a very changing environment, right? Both of us come from a background of data and analytics, and we see now there are formal education programs for data and analytics and data science, right? But a lot of people that we've seen come from very different backgrounds, and they've come to switch to data analytics, and many people sometimes they sometimes they're not able to afford an education in that sector or that specialization, but somehow they have the basic sense and the required skills to kind of work on that role, right? So here's where we in manufacturing kind of do a different perspective on and kind of be more inclusive in our recruitment strategies, right? We do not specifically look at a background. Obviously some roles do require a background, right? But apart from that, there are some basics that I can teach you with respect to my organization, right? Once you're in it, but if you're valuable, you have the required skills, you have the technology background. I mean, we generally do it in all our job postings, even our campus recruitment side. People from all backgrounds are welcome, right? Irrespective of your educational background, if you are a good candidate, you have the required skills. Sometimes we don't know there is a role, but kind of just talking to you, we can create a role for you, right? Because of the flexibility that we have in a family-owned business, right? To give you an example, like I have somebody in my organization who's a recent MBA grad who had a knack for food and worked as a chef for a couple of years before he joined us in the data analytics and the operations analytics space, right? So that's a very diverse background. If the candidate would have come through the conventional applicant tracking system or the job system, he would have been rejected at a BTech level, not having a bachelor's degree in technology, computer science, not having a data analytics degree or a course or something like that, right? So those are the things that we value at an organization level. If you go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, you'll find a lot of kids who've done, a lot of people who've done, you know, math, computer science, or like physics, chemistry, and mathematics in 11th and 12th grade, but don't have the means to kind of get an education, a diploma, a BTech, right? So they kind of get another degree. But when it comes to testing them in the real world, they they learn the concepts, they grasp it far more better, right? See, these are all things where you have to be more inclusive in your job postings in terms of people from all backgrounds are open as long as you have the required, you're open to learning, right? It's a two-way street, right? The candidate also has to be open to kind of learning and growing on the road. So these are different strategies that we've adopted from our campus recruitments that, including more people from backgrounds, going to colleges that are non-technical, right? And obviously training the HR team on using Chat GPT to be more inclusive in the job postings, and even having return to work programs for women, right? So encouraging women who are taking a career break and then with marriage, with kids, and encouraging them to come back to work, giving them flexible options, and they need to be supported throughout the journey when they are they are in your organization as well, right? So just being supportive of all of that. We have somebody who was with us for a while, took a break when she had kids, and then joined us back again, right? So these are all examples of being inclusive and being having strategies for people to return back to work and be inclusive in your recruitment strategies.
Yeah, so this is a great point regarding that you mentioned about the women returning to work, because then it has been seen that around so many women who go on break, then very less percentage, like 25% of women only return back to work. So into that, what can be a good kind of upcoming things that organizations can take up and do, so that women feel more comfortable. Like I've seen certain organizations coming up with daycare facilities at their own organizations itself. So do you think it is safe, or it could hamper the focus of women who are returning back? Or is it necessary that it is done? And right now we are seeing that moreover it is an hybrid work environment also, it is coming up. People are flexible, giving their employees an allowance to work from home. So what is your take on that? Smrita, I would like to hear from you first.
I think for our returning moms or return to work, where there are a lot of women who take, one is what we had tried out was we had actually, instead of giving them a full time, we said you come at you pick your own timings. So you decide how long you want to work, and we will give you projects or work accordingly. So that was something which helped them to ease themselves back into workplace. I personally don't think crash and all those impact the productivity at work. Actually, they increase it, because I've seen even males use that, not just females. Where men have used it that, hey, my company has a better facility, I'm going to bring my kid here. So those are actually very positive means. But Pooja, like you rightly said, uh, this all got disrupted when we went into COVID, because now we have a much more better option where we can give people the option that you can work from home. So InfoSeps, like we have adopted a hybrid work policy. We are saying that you can come to office 2 to 3 days in a week, and rest of the time you can work from home. And we are okay. And the reason we want people to come to office is not because we believe it is productivity. It is because we believe you need to build those connects with each other, because you need to understand the organization which when you come to office. So for returning moms, I think one more challenge which they face many times is, again, there's this unconscious bias. I keep coming back to it because I have I've seen that happening. That it's not just that you've not really experienced it, and it's you have experienced I've actually experienced that during my career, that when you come back from a break, there is this will this person actually be able to take it up, and where training actually helps. So any program which we launch, Puja, would fail if the actual people who are going to work on it are not on board. So if I am launching a return to work, but I have managers who believe that I cannot work with a female who's available only 8 to 9 hours, or 4 to 5 hours in a day, or 8 to 9 is the full hour. But if she's available 3 times in a week, so those things actually, and at least I have seen that post COVID, it has become more easier, because now we have got used to asynchronous working. Earlier, we used to sit in office, we said synchronously, everybody's working. Now we're so used to asynchronous that, okay, you are available at a particular time, I'm available at a particular time, we'll have to coordinate. So, and all those tools, like Arushi said, we have a lot of collaboration tools right now which are making it so much more easier, right? If you have, you have teams and all those, which make it extremely easy for people. So at least I'm quite optimistic as compared to earlier. I feel these programs will mature, we will see more women coming in, but we need to create the environment also for them, where they're accepted back into the workforce much more openly, and their timelines and everything is respected.
Yeah, you rightly said that it comes to back of the mind, ki whether she will be able to do it, or whether there will be some glitch, or whether the performance will come down accordingly. So that also, certainly hampers the growth also of the individual as well as for the organization also. So there was and recent post I read in the morning on LinkedIn. So this was from a person who was working from home, and he had just posted a photo of his baby, and he had said that working from home may hamper my growth, growth, but this is something that I would nurture for a lifetime to see my children grow or something like that. So I was just thinking back of my mind that is it really that key working from home would hamper the growth or not, because we are not certainly sure about that. That if a person is performing to its 100%, why would it hamper your growth, right? I'm thinking from that perspective actually.
I
So
don't think it will hamper growth, Pooja, because that's what I'm saying. See, it's about, at least I personally feel that COVID ensured that what would have taken a decade or 20 years, it ensured that in 2 3 years that entire mindset changed. So there was once a interesting discussion I was where one of the leaders in my earlier organization said that we moved from industrial era, from factories, we directly moved to the same mindset for a knowledge worker, where we said that you have to come in. But the fact is that when you're a knowledge worker, that office space, as I said, is for building connections. It is not for productivity. So that you are understanding people you can work. Because one of the challenges and I'm sure you would have seen that when you're working offline and when you're reading a mail, I see that when I'm reading somebody's mail, my mood is actually deciding the tone of the mail, and I might take offense on something which was actually not supposed to be offensive. Right? So, which is where for those connects, people need to come to office definitely. If you come 2 to 3 days in a week, that'll help. But will it hamper because I'm, coming? No, because that was an industrial era mindset. Clock in, and it will still apply for manufacturing, by the way, for a
Yeah.
knowledge
So I
work.
was
No,
actually
I was
coming to
looking at
that.
Arish and thinking, yes, Arish. Manufacturing would still need, and in fact, even during COVID, I was, I know that I had just joined STL at that time, and our factories were working even during COVID because they were important, the services which they were providing. So, but for a knowledge worker, it will not matter, but they will still need to be in office to connect, to build those connections with people. And even for females or any other gender, or any people who have disabilities who want to join the workforce, I feel this is going to be a much better opportunity for them to come and work. Arushi, you wanted to add on something?
No, no, for sure. Like there are some roles that can work from home. There's no denying that. But obviously, not everything can happen, right? So if you're in manufacturing, or let's say you're in, a retail store, you can't do packaging at home, right? You can't dispatch orders from home unless you're running a business from home, right? The same way in manufacturing, like my plant is in a certain area, you need to report to work. So we have those hours, right? But when it comes to supporting your family or your kids, right, we give you the option to kind of shift your hours, shift your flexibility, right? We work 24/7 or we work multiple hours. You can, if you're traveling to your hometown, you can probably work a couple of days together and use those, days as compensatory offs later. So those are all flexible programs that you kind of get around to devising and working on it, right? But if your role requires, you're hired in a particular role, you're trained in a particular role, it's not, I mean, you can't be working from home if it's a hands-on or be at the plant and package, right? You can, we introduced a new system, right? Where we had, a buddy system. We call it a buddy system, where, if you want to take a leave, you have somebody sign your leave application that this person is your buddy, right? So in your absence, this person is kind of taking over your roles and responsibilities, even if it's for a particular hour that you want to go pick up your kid from school or you have to go and attend their parent teacher meeting. This person will be available to, kind of fill in for your roles, right? This way, you kind of you wanna take a break, you help train somebody else in your role, and if they want to take a break, they help train you in their role. So it's kind of sharing the roles and responsibilities, right? That is important, right? Because I mean, you have to be supportive of people and their lives beyond work. So just giving them flexible options, right? Sometimes we have people from north posted in the south, right? They cannot travel back home so frequently. So uh, sometimes when they travel back home twice a year during festivals or whatever, we help offer train tickets or whatever to them, right? To ensure that the travel back home is smooth, right? They are taking time off to be with family at the same time, right? Giving employees the support is more important, and just ensuring that work doesn't hamper, right? Because you have a responsibility. beyond work as well, but work also is important for your family to function well, right? So what you do in the 12 to 14 hours beyond work largely depends on how you run the 12 or 8 hours while you're at work, right? So your systems at work will kind of influence your life. Beyond work is kind of something to start educating your employees on and helping them get a system together. It's your responsibility. Take a break. That's not a problem with me as long as the work is being done up to the standards, up to the par, and what is required from the company as a brand. Right? That shouldn't suffer at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is like nowadays people are getting open. Organizations have their own strategic, like you said, there are role sharing opportunities also. So this also comes in certainly a kind of people management work, I think so, wherein you have shared opportunities, you have shared responsibilities for a person. So I think so it can make it more flexible. But now, as Smrita said, that hybrid working models many companies are coming up with, because completely remote working is also not feasible, because it doesn't create that kind of connect. And hearing to this, we have been coming across in news that there are so many HR trends that has been coming up, like just attracting people to come back to office, like office peacocking or something like that. So I'm not aware that how much we have been across this trends, but yes, it is right now. Everyone is talking about it. But then now, talking about another trends, we also have AI, which has been coming into picture regarding recruitment, regarding working. In every sector, it has entered. I would like to understand that how can this AI or machine learning be utilized in recruitment, and what are the potential pitfalls that we need to be aware of? So, Smrita, if you can add your points on this.
So, in fact, just recently, one of my friends, he's designing a recruitment software using AI, and he had sent it to me saying, "Smita, why don't you just review it?" So, it will help definitely, automate a lot of initial tasks. See, a lot of times in recruitment is spent in sourcing and then interviews. At least the initial, and anybody who's done recruitment knows that the while people want business wants the person, they also don't have time to interview the person. So AI can definitely help you actually reduce the time, because they can a lot of initial shortlisting etc can happen through AI, because you can have initial round of interviews which can be assessed. After that you can just have the final. One of the pitfalls, the biggest pitfall can be then it becomes extremely impersonal. You would not understand your culture, which is why, as I said, recruitment is about actually they are the talent, the brand ambassadors for the organization. So then it, even from, if I look at it from a end consumer, which is the candidate point of view, they might not know why should I join, Arushi's organization or Smita's organization. It's the same experience for me. So that is one of the, while we can definitely go for increased efficiency, the human touch, that we'll have to ensure that we have the right balance so that candidates are actually joining your, because they join the organization for a career. So that personal touch, that understanding of the organization should definitely be there. Arushi, you want to add on?
No, totally agree with you. Like, I mean, having read and studied heavily about AI, I mean, one thing that I feel why it will not benefit the recruitment process is the human touch, right? When you're recruiting in large numbers, it can obviously help you scale down the number of resumes, but having AI through the complete recruitment life cycle, I am personally like not a big advocate of that, because at the end of the day, if you're not, I mean, people will find out ways to game the AI system, right? So at the end of the day, you're not giving credit to the person, their individuality, and not being inclusive to that person's diversity, right? So that is important. So that is why I feel, an example that I gave you, if it comes to AI, a chef would have been rejected from the entire data analytics process, right? Because there was no testing, there was no human interaction involved, right? So AI, because of the data that it has in terms of the training, the training data that it has, it is going to be inherently biased with the resumes, right, that it has got in the past. Definitely, like the bias is going to continue in the results. Apart from that, a huge challenge I see in India is the large implementation costs. right? Obviously, having us buying a software or having an in-house setup. I mean, anything. There are multiple options available in the country, nationally, internationally as well. But it comes with a huge cost, right? While people would want somebody to take over the initial screening load, the cost of it is sometimes not explainable for organizations, right? Large MNCs or large organizations can cover those, but MSMEs, small businesses, they have recruitment, they have requirements for recruitment, but simply just going through those resumes is sometimes often easier than having a system go through it, because currently doing things manually, or maybe the costs are so high that it's sometimes cheaper to just have a resource and you're going through it, right? So this is the two challenges that I see. One is the inherent training data bias. Second is the large implementation costs. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think Arushi, like you rightly mentioned, and when you were talking, I remembered I had read that when using AI for recruitment, it might actually increase the gender bias because the training data is all the same, right? I mean, because AI is as intelligent as whatever is the data you're putting in.
Correct.
So if you're by default they see a selection trend of a certain ethnicity, a certain gender, it might actually start selecting those kind of people only. So that's one of the
Yeah.
biggest pitfalls, like Arushi rightly mentioned, which is there.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
one more thing that I've seen is a lot of candidates now do a lot of switching very frequently, right? Do AI algorithms kind of understand, switching? Like personally, when I see a person's resume and they're a switcher, I mean, they're less likely to be recruited in my organization, because I will recruit them 2 years out, they're gone, right? So that's a trend that's going to keep continuing. Versus if you're looking for certain keywords, that person's resume is going to keep popping up again and again, again and again, right? So they're fit for the role, but are they fit as a culture, or are they fit as a value system in my organization? These are questions I don't think AI can answer at this point of time, unless and until you provide them with your organization specific values, cultures, and unless and until they're customized to the organization's value systems, right? So that's more important.
Yeah. So you have mentioned a very realistic point, actually, the values and the culture of the organization. So first, I think so there needs to be certain kind of systems wherein AI can learn it, to understand that what exactly if you are installing a software. Like for example, nowadays we use Facebook or Instagram. It understands the user behavior. So in that case, I think so it can help, but until now, I don't think so it has been advanced that much. It has been that much advancements which can actually help understand people that okay, this resume will be a fit one and this cannot be a fit one. But certainly, I have heard like, do you think that it helps in unconscious bias at least? Because many a times it happens that me being a woman, if I'm hiring, like earlier Smrita told that she understood later on when a LGBTQ member commented that, are you considering or something like that. So in that case, it comes to certain limitations when it is in human hiring, but AI has its certain causes into unconscious bias also. So what do you think, with this help for initial stages, into induction stages, or making people understand further your organizational structure?
So
Yeah. So
Arushi, sorry, Pooja, like I think
yes.
what Arushi and I said, it's a double-edged sword, right? You can wield it either way. So yes, there are benefits, but then you have to be
Yeah.
aware of what can be the potential pitfall so that you can actually
Yeah.
leverage it for the benefits. I think that's what
Yeah.
I would put it as.
I mean, it can
Yeah.
work great in tech roles, in software roles, where there is a large requirement, right? Versus for conventional manufacturing, or for, like, I'd say civil engineering, mechanical engineering, maybe specialty roles, where from one particular stream, you're recruiting a variety of roles. You're recruiting a marketing person as well as a technical person, which is somebody as a quality analyst, right? These are very specific roles. That's where, I mean, you can have biases, because your data is going to be largely biased by, let's say, male candidates, right? Because in the past, you've not seen a lot of women in civil engineering, right? So that's where your biases can come through later on. And we're seeing a lot of diversity with women in civil engineering or women in logistics nowadays, right? So how and when does it get captured in the model and kind of throughout those results? That's more important. So that's what we have to be careful of using.
Okay, so that sums up to the technology that has been coming up. Many organizations are using it for certain operations, but yes, end-to-end operations are not that much visible. So, like we look towards more effective strategies, but then the people who are at our organizations, the HRs, the talent executives, so there has been a note that they need certain kind of training to understand what exactly DEIB inclusion is. So, what can be the most effective approaches wherein diversity training for HR professionals and hiring managers can be in place? I would like to start it from you, Arushi.
So, so like I said, I mean, the most effective approach is not just coming from an HR. It has to come from the business as well, right? So HR can design a program, but at the end of the day, it has to be adopted in your day-to-day decision making, in your day-to-day actions, right? Every small thing that you do, you have to have in your back of mind that, how is it affecting the inclusion strategy or the diversity strategy that I'm thinking of, right? Is my action counter to what I'm saying or kind of doing, right? So just an example, like, we started educating our employees on the importance of data in the organization, right? That's a very simple example, right? So we had to keep going back to them in terms of telling them that, here's the importance, recognizing that, here's what you've done, and kind of telling them, this is what some person did, this is what's beneficial. You have to kind of adapt that. Recognizing those things, valuing those things, even you do your actions on a day-to-day basis should reflect of the strategy that you're saying. And HR obviously is the brand ambassador of the organization, internal as well as external. Be fully aligned to what your decisions are. This should get
So,
so bad.
Smita,
Pooja, just
yeah, please.
sorry. No,
Arushi,
I
you
was
were
saying,
saying.
so just yeah, you can complete your thought,
No,
Arushi.
sorry, I think I lost some internet. But yeah, I was just saying that has to be your business and leadership mind along with the HR, and they have to work cohesively together to ensure that this is
Sure. So I think Arushi rightly mentioned, and Pooja had also said in the start that for anything to work, you have to first create the understanding. So when you look at diversity training, there has to be an understanding on why this is important, and not just by speaking, by actually doing so. Uh, in fact, we did this interesting speed mentoring exercise for our women, associates during the Women's Month in March, and so I had some few other leaders who were along with me, and I said we will just do 15 minutes. I don't want more than that. In 15 minutes, let these women, learn from 4 different leaders. So they had 1 hour with 15 people, and then the leaders, the understanding they gained of the problems of these women was actually, I mean, it was eye opening for them. They said, oh my God, they're all facing more or less the same kind of challenges. So building those, and so then they become allies for these women. They said, oh, we need to support them. So that ally network has to be strong. So managers, like you said, hiring managers, HR professionals, they have to first become allies by understanding why certain things are happening and what is the challenge which is coming in. There are a lot of training programs which are available, right? There are beautiful training programs which are available, which actually make people aware about it. But I always feel that I put you through a 1 hour training, you will be there, and after that, I have to reiterate the message, which has to be through action. So certain programs like this, in 1 hour, when we did this mentoring, we covered 16 people over 4 weeks because I wanted it to be extremely, uh, you know, uh, focused. And I had these managers who suddenly developed an understanding. And they said, "Oh, this is what these guys go through," and I'm sure they will now spread the message to their teams, their own reportees, because they were leaders in the organization. Those leaders will now go to their manager and say, hey, you have to understand this is what people are actually going through and they need support. So that is how you actually, the training then leads to action. Because otherwise, training alone can actually never lead to action. That's just an instant blip that at time you develop an understanding and you have to continuously exercise that muscle to build that.
Yeah.
And what could be the possible elements that we can actually know that these trainings are effective or are actually implemented further?
Your engagement scores, as Arushi had said, for I mean, the first thing would be and like your engagement scores. How are people actually reacting? So we have a continuous pulse in our organization. We implemented a continuous pulse mechanism where every 6 months chatbot reaches out to people, and I actually go through those feedbacks also, and that gives me the pulse. And there are specific questions on DI over there, and another is how are your numbers? Because pulse is one thing, and then if I still don't see a drop in my recruitment, in my attrition rate, or if my recruitment rates are not improving, that means this people are saying some things but acting the other way. So the numbers at the end of the day will tell the actual story. So these are two things.
One
Okay.
point I would like to add there, numbers do tell a story. And it also depends on your organization's data capturing maturity. Right? For us as an organization, numbers comes a little later versus how we measure pulses or how we understand that what's happening is just talking to somebody. You kind of, when you throw a question or you throw a you know task at them, their turnaround times or their motivation to kind of do the task, you will start seeing small changes in terms of the motivation level in the employee, and you will start feeling the changes in the energy on the shop floor or the office floor. And you will also start seeing even messages will come through to you, right? Those things literally change my day, right? Just seeing a message from somebody saying, thank you, ma'am, you tried this, and this is what is working, right? So this is how it's helped me. My family says thank you, right? My kids want to talk to you for this, right? So all of those things are elements of pulse check. It can happen differently for different organizations. Just listening to, hearing to, just sitting on the shop floor and observing are different ways of measuring impacts and changes of the same process. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as we are nearing towards the end of this session, I would like both of you to add on your highlight points that you would like to address your audience who are watching us right now. So, I would start it from Arushi. So, what would be your highlight points, or what would be your message to the people who are viewing this webinar?
Yeah. Thank you, Pooja, and thank you, Shiva team, for organizing this. I think this is a much needed topic to kind of keep talking about, right? For even for small organizations, for large organizations, for everybody, diversity and inclusion is important. It depends on where you are as an organization, what's your maturity, how much time you have to spend. Right, large organizations can do weekly or bi-weekly connects to kind of keep monitoring. But even for small organizations, you shouldn't put it at the back burner. Right, it can be something you monitor even once a month, once a quarter, or maybe even once a year, but don't put it on the back burner, right? That diversity and inclusion are not important. It is important, right? You could focus on when you become a large organization. No, the problem is going to be far beyond your scope of control when you're an organization of a large size. Start building small, start making small changes, small initiatives. Just have it in your head to kind of focus on it, right? Have a smart plan, like make it specific, make it measurable, have an action on it, have a timeline on it, right? The timeline could be, but just some time specific goal and make it relevant to your organization, right? So just having something small, kind of building up on it, is important to the whole process. And diversity and inclusion is not just limited to large organizations, it's for everybody in every sector: manufacturing, trading, wholesale, whatever retail you are. And it doesn't have to be about the corporate offices and the corporate spaces. You could be a 4-person team and still talk about diversity and inclusion, right? Because the smaller you start, the better it is and the faster the growth you will have. So yeah, that's my last 2 words.
Thanks
Arushi,
a
there
lot.
were amazing thoughts. I love the fact that you said it's not about when you are a certain size that you start doing this. It's actually from the start. It's about the core of the organization. Like I think what you basically saying. So I think Pooja, my only thoughts would be that this is not just a tick box. It's not something which should be treated as that. Yeah, I need to do this because everybody is doing. But like Arushi rightly said, it's the core. when you need to be involving all sorts of people in an organization. Everybody should be part of the organization. You should not feel that I cannot do this, I cannot grow in this organization. And it will actually help the organization grow and for people to grow. Because, and I always believe that you should have fun at work. So if I'm having fun at work and if I'm being prevented from actually having fun at work because of the behaviors around me, then it's not good space for me to be mentally in. So I would prefer to create an organization where people are comfortable in their own skin. They're actually, they have the means to actually just do the work, enjoy themselves, and go. And that's why DI is extremely, extremely important. So those are my thoughts, Pooja.
Great. Thanks a lot for both of you to come on board with us for our webinar series and share your insights and expertise with us today. And we hope that this discussion has provided valuable strategies and perspectives for building a diverse and inclusive workforce to our audience. And at the end of the webinar, I would like to thank our audience for joining us, and we look forward for continuing this important conversation. Have a great day ahead. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Harushi.
you.
Thanks, Pooja.
Thank you,
Bye.
Sweta.